Hello, this is the first video in a series of tutorials that will be explaining the basics of processing, and inside this series we will be creating a game which will look like this. Um, so I will explain to you everything. You don't need to know anything about programming before you play this game. So the point of the game, you're this white dot right here, and you're trying to not hit the orange dots, and you're trying to reach the other side of the screen. So it's very hard. So I'm probably not going to be able to do it. Yeah, okay. So this is the game that we're going to make in probably three tutorial series. There's not much code. It's simple code. Okay, there's not much to it. So let's get started. So first, this is going to be made in processing, which is kind of like Java, except that it's more for graphics. So to download processing, go on processingorg, and it will bring you to their website. They do some really cool stuff. So there's the download, and then you can give a donation. You should give a donation. They're very good. It's a very good software. Well, not software, a coding language. But I won't because I already have it. So then you click download whatever you have. I'm using Mac, so I click here. Yeah, that's it. So then it's gonna download a zip file. Yeah, I think a zip file. Then just open it up, and you'll have the app. So let's get started. So we're gonna create a new project, okay? And this project gonna have a random name. Well, sketch and then some number. So don't worry about that. You can rename the project later. But for now, we don't need that. Okay, so let's get started. So the basics of this program are: so if you want to run the program, you click here. Stop the program, you click here. Or you could also just X out of the window that it creates. Just Command S to save. All of that stuff. It does not save automatically, and when you run it, it does not save. Okay, so to start the program, we're gonna write void setup, and so void means this is like a thing which is gonna have text inside it. These mean this is like where the text is gonna be inside. So it's like all the text that's inside these things right here are going to be part of the void called setup. And setup is the thing that runs at the beginning of the program. So when the program reads the code, it says, oh, this is void setup. So this is the first thing I'm going to run, and I'm only going to run it once. So I'm only going to go through the code once. Okay? So now we need to write the code in here. So make sure to put these and these. Okay? It will give you an error. See, if I don't put it, it gives me a red line, and then missing the right parenthesis. So right now, if you run the program, not much is going to happen. It just gives you a small window, 100 pixels by 100 pixels. Nothing really happens. A gray background. Okay, so first let's set the size of the window. So I want the size of the window to be 1440, because this is the dimensions of my screen, by 300. Okay, and so whenever you put something like according to a graph with an x and a y, the x is always first, the y is always second. And this is how it is in processing. So I click size, right? No, I don't click size. I write size. Then I open parentheses, close parentheses, and put a semicolon. So what this means, it means the function called size. So this command does something. It sets the size of the screen. So now inside these parentheses, this is where I give it the parameters. So I need to tell it what's the size of the screen, right? So the x-axis first, right? So 1440, right? And then a comma to say this is the next parameter, and then 300. This is how it works for every function in processing. Also, the semicolon that's here means this is the end of the command. This is it. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to put another command, right? So now, well, that's all we're going to need for now in the void setup. So now let's do a thing called void draw. So void setup and void draw are the basic functions in processing. So you can create your own functions like void test. You see, this is my own function. because it's my own function, this thing is not in blue. So it's a function that I created, and I'm going to tell it what to do. And then I can do run the thing test in here, right? So if I write the code in here, I say like fart, okay? And I tell it run test, well then the test is going to fart. And if but you see, this is more efficient if it's like a group. If I can like fart, then run, then walk, then you see, I have to put like a semi. These are not real functions, just made up. So test is gonna make it fart, then run, then walk. And if I put more than one test, fart, run, walk, fart, run, walk. That's how it works. So if you want to write a lot of code, but you don't want to rewrite it every single time, that's how it works basically. That's the use of a function. There's other uses, but that's the basic use. Okay. So now let's actually set the background color, because right now you see the size is correct. See, it's the right size, but the background color is gray. I want it to be dark gray. So I say background. Okay. That is if I can spell background. Okay, open parentheses, close parentheses. It's angry right now because I didn't give it up the parameters. Like, yeah, well, you have to give me parameters, or else I can't know the color. So the color that you give it, you don't say green. Okay, then it's gonna get angry. Like, what shade of green do you want? What, you know? So that's not how it works. You tell it what's called RGB: the red value, the green value, and the blue value, and then also alpha if you want it. So red is a number from 1 to 125, and no, from 0 to 125, and basically saying how much red you want inside your color, how much green you want in your color. They're all 1 to 125, 0 to 125, sorry, and the amount of blue. So if I want it to be bright red and only red, then I'll make it 0, 0. And this is an optional parameter, you don't have to put it. So now it's going to make it 100% red, no green, and no blue. Okay? So now if I run the program, see, it's the brightest possible red that it can get, and nothing else. If I make it like just 50 red, then it's going to be a darker red. See? It's a darker. It's not as much red as it can put, basically. So, but the smaller the number, the darker. If I make it 0, 0, 0, it's black, right? If I make it 255, 255, 255, then it's the maximum of every color, which makes white. And with this system, you can create every single color. So this will make, well, it's maximum green, maximum blue, and what is green and blue mixed? It's turquoise. So it's turquoise, right? Or light blue. If I want to make it yellow, then I make it the maximum red and the maximum green. I know this is kind of weird, but that's how it works. Yellow. If I want to make it like orange, then I put like 150. So maximum red and a little bit a little bit of green makes orange. I know that's not how it works in the real world, but that's how it works in here. So think of green as yellow basically, but green acts as yellow for the red, but it acts as green for the blue. It's weird. Okay. So I wanted this to be gray, so I can write 27, 27, 27. This is just a very dark color, but it's not black. It's not exactly black. It's not exactly black. So, but also there's a shortcut to it, which is that I can, instead of writing 27 repeatedly, or 0, 0, 0, or 20, 255, 255, I can just write 27. And that's going to set it for every single value. So now, it's the same thing. If I make it 0, it'll be black. If I make it 255. So this, if you only put one value, it sets it for all of the values. So there's a thing called alpha, which I'm going to explain soon, but you can't really see what it does in the background. So now what we're going to do is create our player, right? And our player is going to be a rectangle, right? So let's create a function, a new function. This is not a default function. This is our own function. So we call it display, okay? So this is going to basically draw the character, right? So the display function needs to draw the character. So we're going to write display in here. So in here it's going to say, oh, I set the background color, then I run display. Okay, what's display? So it runs the code in here. So the display is going to draw a rectangle. Okay, so rect stands for rectangle, open parentheses, close parentheses, semicolon, and end of command, right? So now it's angry because it needs 4 parameters: the x position, the y position, the x size, and the y size. Okay, and what it does, it's so I give it, let's make it like, so when I set the size, it's this, I can access the value by saying width. So if I say width, then it'll say, oh, the width of the screen is 1440. Okay, so this just stands for 1440. But you're like, well, then why don't you just write 1440? This is because if I were to change the size, then I would have to rechange it for every single time where I wrote 1440. But here it's width, and the width will change automatically. So let's make in the center. So width divided by 2 and height divided by 2. Okay, and then the size. So we're gonna make it 10 pixels. No, we're gonna make it 200 pixels by 200 pixels. So you're like, wait, this is not in the center. The corner is in the center, but not the rectangle. Okay, so what it does, you see, the rectangle just went off screen. Okay, it's over here. That's not going to give you an error if you try to put it somewhere where the screen doesn't display it. It's just not going to show it. So it's like, wait, the corner is in the center, but the rectangle itself is not. So this is because when it draws a rectangle, it gets the x position, it gets the y position, and then it says, okay, so 200 pixels this way, 200 pixels this way. So it's not basing it, it's basing it off of the corner, not of the actual center of the rectangle. So if we want to do that, if we want to make it base it off of the actual center of the rectangle, we're going to write rect mode. So the mode of the rectangle is going to be center, all caps. Okay, so now if I run the program, it's in the center. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is give it a color, because we don't. What if we don't want it to be white? So we do fill, and then we give it whatever color we want. So what fill does is it fills the color until it reaches another fill that changes its order. So if I put another rectangle here and a circle, which is ellipse, and I don't know, something else, well, all of these are going to be white, right? But if I make it fill, well, if let's say fill is the same concept as background. It's RGB. So let's make it red, okay? And then let's make this one green, okay? Green, sorry, not red. Okay. So here, this is gonna make, if I were to not have this, if I put 2 backslashes, it makes the code not read it. It just ignores it. It's for you, basically. So if I were to not have this, it would do this would be white, this would be white, and this would also be white. But if I were to have this, this would be white, and then this would be red. This would be this would be red. Oh my god! Just ignore what I just said. This would be red, this would be red, this would be red, right? Because there's nothing that's changing its order. It stays red and will continue being red until somebody tells it otherwise. So now here it's going to be red, okay, but then somebody told it otherwise. Now it's green. So this one is going to be red, green, green. That's how it works. So it runs the program in line by line by line, except for like this one. It's like, oh, I'm going to run the code in here. So it like puts it in here, and then it goes back to over here. So what we're going to do now is we are going to give it a good color that's not red, because this is the player. You don't want the player to be red, right? And we only need to draw one rectangle. So we're going to give it a size of 30 by 30, and we want to know its radius. So I'm going to create a variable. So how you create a variable? Well, we're going to make it white. Okay, so we don't have to write 255 to 55. We can just write it like that. So for the red, to create a variable, we're going to tell it this variable is going to be integer, and it will always be an integer, and that is what it will always be. And if it is not an integer, it will give me an error. That's how it works. And then we're going to give it a position, right? So that position, actually, no, not a position, a value. But first we need to give it a name. So it's going to be called radius. The variable is going to be called radius. It's going to be equal to 15. Okay, so, and the end of command. So a variable that's going to be an integer is going to be called radius, and it's going to have a value of 15. So now, if I want to access the radius, all I need to do is write radius, and this is just the same thing as writing 15. But if I want to access this later, if I were to change the size of the radius, well then it will change it automatically. But because this is the radius, then it's only half, so let's multiply it by 2. You're going to see why I'm using radius instead of diameter, and I get it, this is a rectangle. Why are you using terms for a circle? It's fine, the program doesn't care, it's just a name. Just one thing, you can't put a number as the starting letter of a name. If you want to do it, you can put it at the second, but here it gives me an error. It's like, what? There's no variable called radius. There's only a variable called r1 radius. Okay, so now if I run the program, it's 15 by 15. No, it's 30 by 30. Okay, it's all good. But you see how there's like this very slight black outline right here? This is called the stroke. If you want to take it off, you put no stroke, basically. If you want to change the color of the strokes, you put stroke and then put the color. Same thing as fill, and it goes on and on and on and on. So this thing will go on and on and on and on forever because I never want there to be stroke. Okay. So if I take this off, you'll see that it doesn't draw the rectangle. Even if I have the code there, I never told it to run that specific code. So make sure that if you're like, but I wrote the code and it's not running, well, it's probably because you never told it to run the function. So now we're going to make our thing have position, velocity, and acceleration. So this is, don't be scared, okay? They're big names, it's fine. Float, okay? This is not going to be an int, it's going to be called a float. You're like, there's integers, there's whole numbers, there's natural numbers, but there isn't a floating number. What is a floating number? Okay, so a float number is just a number that has a decimal. You could also use double. I just like to use float. But you're like, well, why do you use float in here? Because maybe there'll be a decimal, and it's just better, right? Because just in case, right? But you see, if a float takes up more space, it's harder for the computer than an int. An int is just, okay, never a decimal. But float, it could have a decimal. So when you're gonna use it, when you know it's gonna always be an int, just make it an int, okay? There's no point making it float, it just takes up more space. Okay, so how long is this tutorial? Oh well, it seems pretty long. So I'm gonna end it soon once we have the player moving. So the float is gonna be its x position. Okay, I'm gonna call it xp. X position is equal to. I'm just not gonna give it a value yet. So now just say it's called xp, but we don't know what it stands for yet. No, like what's its value? So yp, the y position, and then we're creating another float called velocity. I'm not call it velocity because people get scared. I'm going to call it x speed, and then y speed, because this is in terms of a graph. You need to remember this. You can't just give it a speed. You need to give it a speed for every single coordinate. If there were three dimensions, you would put a z speed, and then the acceleration. Okay, so the acceleration, we're only gonna have some for the y-axis to make gravity. Here it's gonna be an error because there's two variables called the same thing. So there's only gonna be one for the y, which is, so it's gonna be, I'm just calling it gravity, and it's going to be equal to this. We know the value of what is it gonna be? 0.4. Okay. Has to be a small number. I think it's too big. So then we're gonna create a the resistance, because we want it to slow down. When we like press the right key, we don't want it to go on right forever. So this is not actually gonna be acceleration. It's gonna be resistance. So I'm gonna call it resistance. I'm just gonna call it R, and it's gonna be called 0. It's gonna have a value of 0.98. Okay. So this is why I have to float. If I were to put in int, it would go wrong. So, and you see, you want to like, but these are going to stay ints, these can stay ints, yeah, but once you multiply it by something that's a decimal, it's going to become a decimal, right? So now let's give these values, because, well, this is just going to be equal to 0. It's just going to start off with no speed. And let's give these values. So I couldn't give these values because I want it to be at the center of the screen. No, at 1/10 of the screen, and then on the floor basically. But because I don't know the width and the height, well then I can't tell you that. So but now that we know the width and the height, then we can give it a value. So we're gonna say xp is equal to, because if I were to say like equals width, it's like you never told me what width was. How am I supposed to know what it stands for, right? But now we did tell it what width is. We told it right here. So xp is going to be equal to width times 0.1, 1/10. Now let's make it 0.2. Okay, set semicolon. Then yp is equal to width, height minus radius. Ooh. So why did I use radius here? Because this rectangle spawns in the center, right? So if let's say these three lines are the screen, so I'm going to select these three lines. Okay, these three lines stand for the screen right here. And so the cube, instead of being here, if I were to just say width, then it would be, if I were just to say height instead of height minus radius, it would just be here, right? Because its position is at height and it draws it around the center, right? But if it's height minus radius, then it's minus radius, right? So it's one radius higher than the bottom. And so now it sets perfectly on the edge. Oh yeah, just one thing about processing. So if I run this, it's normal because we never told it to move or anything, right? The x-axis goes this way, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then the y-axis, instead of being 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's downward for some reason. So it's kind of like being inside quadrant 4, except that it's always positive. So that's kind of weird. So the x-axis is this way, the y-axis is this way. So just know that. This is why I'm making it minus height instead of plus height. Well, it would just be, if I wanted to spawn here, I would just make it radius, right? Because it's 0 plus radius. It's always in terms of pixels. The position is always in terms of pixels, not inches, not centimeters, not millimeters, pixels. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create the move function. So now we want it to fall and to apply to gravity. We want it to be just not a cube that just stands where. We want it to be a cube that moves. And we don't want it to be in the center anymore. We want it to be at xp and yp, at the y position and the x position. So now if I run the program, you're going to see it's about here. Yeah, you see? It's at the bottom of the screen, it's 2/5 of the way. No, 1/5. 0.2 is 1/5. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a move function, right? Void move. The void means this is the function, okay? And void move. Okay. So now what we need to do is we need to do the xp plus the x speed, right? The x position plus equals. So you can do math with variables. It's perfectly normal. That's most of the time what you're gonna do. So the x position is equal to so this is the same. Plus equals stands for equals the x position plus the x. So the x position equals itself plus the, so just increasing by xs, right? But because programmers are lazy, they don't want to write that xp. You know, it's very tiring to write 4 characters. So equals plus is the same thing as just incremented by xs. Plus means incremented by 1. So if I didn't have the here, incremented by 1. Plus minus, no, minus, decrease it by 1. Minus equals xs, make it smaller by xs. You know, just times equals, you know, just it's the same thing. So let's get that back over here. Command Z works in the software. Okay, plus equals. So now we're gonna do this for the same thing for the y-axis. Yp plus equals ys, and then the ys is gonna increase now. The ys is gonna increase by the acceleration, which is the gravity basically. So ys plus equals gravity, right? And then one more thing, we're not going to do the xp plus equals r, we're going to do the xp the x speed times equals r, right? Because this is resistance, so you multiply it. xp times equals r. No, excess. Sorry. Okay. So now let's make it move in here. And you're not gonna see much because it's already at the bottom of the screen. When it's gonna fall, just go out of the screen like immediately. But let's just say that it at least works. Okay, so you see it fell. Let's get it in the center so we actually see what's happening. Height over 2. Okay. No, let's just make it 0. Again, since spawn like above the screen, you're not gonna see it at first. Okay, it falls, it accelerates, it has gravity, it's good. Okay. So now what we're gonna do is you're like, but there's no controls, right? We can't make it move left, right, jump, go down. You know, there isn't that stuff. So now I'm gonna make this control function. Then I'm gonna stop the video because it's getting pretty long. Gonna be void controls. Okay. Controls. Control. Just control. Does control have 2L? Yeah, it probably does. Okay. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna give it. We're gonna do an if statement. So an if statement is basically saying if the condition that you put inside these parentheses is true in here. So this is the condition, and then this is the action. So if this thing is true, then you're gonna run this stuff. The stuff that it's the same thing as the function. You're gonna run what's inside here. So you're gonna run this stuff, the stuff that's inside here. Okay? There is no function called action, no thing called condition. This is just for humans. It's pseudocode. Okay, so if this condition is true, so it can be like if 3 equals 4. If 3 equals 4, this is and then fart. Then this thing is never going to fart because 3 will never equal 4 no matter what. Also, it's giving me an error. Not because this will never happen, but because right now I am assigning 3 to 4. 3 is now equal to 4. So what I need to do is if 3 was equal to 4. So the 2 equals mean if it was, not it is, right? If it was. This is not assigning, it's just saying if it is. Then you would fart. But this would never happen. If 3 equals 3, then it will always be equal 3. It gives me like I compare identical expressions. So it's always going to fart no matter what. But we don't like to use numbers. We like to use variables. Okay. So if key code, which means if the key which is pressed is equal to right. Okay. The right stands for the right arrow key. It's kind of like the center. It's all caps. So if the key being pressed is right, then the x speed, right? The x speed is going to be equal to 3. So now it adds 3 to the position every time, right? No, okay, we're going to create a variable called horizontal. Int horiz, okay? Which stands for the horizontal speed, okay? Horiz is going to be equal to 5. Okay, so then you're going to add horiz to it. Plus equals, no, it's equal to, no, yeah, it is equal to horiz. So we don't want it to accelerate when you press it for a long time. We just want it to just stay at 5. So x equals horiz. But right now, if I run the program, well, let's write control in here. Let's take off the gravity. Okay. Wait, sorry. Yeah, okay, let's spawn it at width over 2. Okay, so now the cube is here. We took off the gravity so it's not falling, and now I press the right arrow key. And you see that it continues moving even once I've let go of clicking the arrow key, and it will go on moving forever. So this is a problem, because it should be slowing down because we put some resistance right here. But you see, right now I need to put, this will always be, the key, once it's right, it's always right, and once I stop pressing it, it will still be considered true. So I need to be if a key is pressed. there's functions. There's like, okay, right. If I go to the processing website, it's somewhere. I'm gonna find it. Look, I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find it. You see, it's absolutely nowhere to be seen. So, where is it? Oh my god. Okay, this is weird. I think I X'd out the window. Okay. Um, so if you go to the processing.org, you will see that you will see if you go on reference, it gives you all of the stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff and stuff. I'm not going to teach all of these to you. I've taught you like two of them. Well, I'm not in this in these tutorials. I'm not really going to teach you the functions. I mean, the functions are easy to learn. Just go here and you're like, ooh, what's ellipse? And then you click on it. Then it shows you. So it takes the x coordinate, okay, the y coordinate, the width, and the height. Ooh, so now you know the function, and there it's super easy to learn. But the type of thinking that you need to code, the how you think about code, how you break down commands into an easy to understand thing for the computer, that's the hard part. So if you need to know its function, just search it up. There's hundreds of documentations on it, like Stack Overflow. Okay, so now, so if key pressed is true, right, then you're gonna run this code. So if a key is actually being pressed, then you're gonna run this code. So now, if I do it, and then it slows down, right, like that. So this is perfect. So now we're gonna do the same thing for the other keys. If you want to format your code, you can do Command T. It cleans it up, makes it more easy to read. So now we're gonna do if key code is left, then we're gonna make it the negative horizontal position. So if I run it, do that. This works and this works, and they both slow down because they're both inside the if key pressed if statement. So there, that's good. So now let's put the up key, down key. So the jump is the same thing. So we're gonna call it. We're gonna make a variable called the jump. Int jump. So this stands for the jump power. I don't know, 10. Okay. Now let's make it 7. Okay. And what we're gonna do is if the key code is equal to up, then we're gonna make it then we're gonna make the y speed this time equal to negative jump because the thing is inverted, right? If you want to make it go up, it's actually a negative number. So now, because there is no gravity and there is no resistance for the y-axis, then you're gonna see goes up forever. So let's turn on the gravity again to see what happens. Okay. So now. Okay, that's perfect. You see? Perfect. Perfect. Oh, okay. So, but what I also want to do is, because this game is super hard and there's a lot of cubes everywhere, I want to make it so that when you press the down key, you go down much faster. You like boost downwards. So it's the same thing, except that if key code is equal to down, then ys is equal to jump, right? And now it's just positive because we want it to go downwards. So now, let's present it. Presentation just makes it not a window. So there, you have your thing, and if you press downwards, absolutely nothing happens. Oh, it does. It does. Look. Yeah, it works. Okay, so, oh, right. So we're going to make it actually plus equals jump. Because let's say the cube, okay, it's going down at a speed of 9, right? And then I say, I'm going to press the down key. And so then it goes down at a speed of 7. So it's basically slowing it down. So we wanted to speed it up. So now, see, yeah, but I think we need to make it a little bit weaker. Actually, no, that's fine. See, so that's how it works. Okay, so jump over to. Okay. So these were the controls, and in the next tutorial I will make it so that there's walls and just Gus doesn't come out of the screen every 10 seconds. So thanks for watching. This code will be, there's going to be a link to the description to this code so you can download it. And thank you for watching.